Hi everyone, this is part 2 of our 2-part storytelling series. This series will highlight the lived experiences and stories from programs and organizations that support newcomer early childhood educators, families, and children.
Gelasi, bienvenue, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us here today for our storytelling session focused on promoting equity in early childhood in Atlantic Canada. My name is Jessie Lee McIsaac, and I use she, her pronouns. I am the director of the Early Childhood Collaborative Research Center and a Canada Research Chair in Early Childhood and the Faculty of Education and the Department of Child and Youth Study at Mount St. Vincent University. I'd first like to begin by respectfully acknowledging the land in which we're gathered for the storytelling series. Wabanaki is a Mi'kmaq word that describes where the sun rises first, or the dawnland, and one that also describes the eastern location of the work that will be highlighted on Turtle Island. I am joining you from Chibuktuk, part of Mi'kma'ki, the unceded ancestral territory which remains the homeland of the Mi'kmaq Nation. This territory is covered by the covenant chain of treaties of peace and friendship signed between 1725 and 1779. These treaties are affirmed by the Supreme Court of Canada and recognize Aboriginal title. We are all treaty people and have a responsibility to uphold these treaties through relationships of peace and friendship. And in our seminar series today, we will highlight stories from the unceded traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq and the Beothuk. And as conveners of the storytelling series, we take some time at the beginning of this session to pay respect to the knowledge embedded in the Indigenous custodians of the lands and waters and to the elders past, present, and future. I'm reflecting today upon our four core Mi'kmaq values of respect, responsibility, relationship, and reciprocity in our work together in early childhood. Story sharing within communities can be a powerful way to come together and build connections with each other as we work together to promote well-being in early childhood. And as we begin these conversations today, we invite you also to take some time to reflect on these core values and how that brings us together to support young children and their families across the Wabanaki region of Turtle Island. Thank you so much for being with us here today. Before we dive into the session, I do want to take a moment just to tell you a bit about what got us to here, for those of you that maybe this is your first storytelling session with our team. Our team at the Early Childhood Collaborative Research Center at the Mount has been working in collaboration with many others across the Atlantic region for the last 4 years. In 2001, we had a seminar series focused on leveraging data in early childhood systems to support ongoing policy decisions. And then as we're all familiar, in 2022-23 across Canada, the provincial, territorial early learning and childcare agreements really brought heightened attention on early childhood and has accelerated efforts to scale up initiatives to increase access and affordability of childcare. And at the same time, there's been an important focus on the importance of the early childhood workforce, and our collaborative network across Atlantic Canada identified a need to leverage our collective efforts in this focused attention on early childhood to ensure that equity among families and children and educators are really at the forefront. So equity in early childhood practice means thoughtful consideration of the whole family and the child and with their local community, and really thinking about how we can tailor support based on intersectional needs and strengths. Equity means embracing principles of fairness and justice and working to eliminate structural inequities that limit learning opportunities for children and families among equity-deserving communities. It also means ensuring that early childhood professionals are supported and have a sense of cultural safety in their practice. And so with this in mind, we held a 3-part seminar series in 2023 to highlight stories of equity with a specific focus on accessibility and inclusion, culturally responsive practice, and anti-oppression. And you can see our graphic illustrations of those sessions on the screen. Then we brought folks together across the region last fall to really figure out what we might like to do in building and sustaining the network going forward. So together, we have just submitted a proposal for funding to build what we call the Peace Hub, promoting equity in early childhood. We've just successfully submitted our proposal over the last couple of weeks, and with our group of committed partners, over 22 partner organizations, an additional 22 co-applicants and collaborators across the Atlantic region and beyond, have identified this vision where we're committed to advancing the co-creation of knowledge regarding how equity in early childhood is understood and practiced throughout Atlantic Canada. And with support from this broader network, we're just really excited to announce that we have submitted a proposal to realize this vision, and we hope to have more great news to share in the spring. As a sneak peek, these are some of what the Peace Hub will offer across Atlantic Canada as we launch, hopefully in the spring upon our success in the submission. This is a web mock-up of what things will look like and highlights website resources, virtual and in-person professional learning opportunities, and networking opportunities also to connect folks across the region, and a real concerted effort to enhance communication and collaboration. There's such excellent work happening in the Atlantic region, and what we see as a real potential for this hub is to bring together that excellence and find opportunities to really advance what's already happening through building on success. These initiatives would not be possible with the support of our many partners across the Atlantic region, many of whom are joining us today. And we just want to take a moment right now to thank you for your collaboration and commitment to working together, and also to acknowledge support from the Margaret and Wallace McCain Family Foundation, which is continuing to provide funding to maintain our network and these types of conversations that we're going to have today until we hear the news of future funding. So we are here today focused on a two-part session. This is part two. We held another session back in October, which was part one of this series. And this focus today is really looking at identifying the experiences, the stories from people that work or serve programs and organizations that support newcomer early childhood educators, families, and children. Our session a few weeks ago on October 30th was focused on the first voice, the lived experiences of newcomer early childhood educators. And one of the reasons why we're focusing on Atlantic Canada and our network is because of our similar community context. And we're all seeing increases in our overall population and also in the diversity of our residents. And in recent years, there's been an increase in the number of immigrants who have chose to live and play and learn in Atlantic Canada. And as our Canada-wide early learning and childcare agreements are rolled out, we're seeing increased workforce pressures in this sector. With this labor gap in early childhood, more immigrants and newcomers are coming to Atlantic Canada through early childhood pathways that have led to increased diversity in our workforce. But there's also a gap in understanding how we can work together to support these newcomer early childhood educators, to support families with young children in early learning and childcare settings, in community settings as well. We also need to find ways to celebrate the diversity of newcomers in our region and find ways to really celebrate this diversity of lived experience and the multicultural lens that this brings to our Atlantic Canadian communities and the opportunities this brings for our young children. So this is the focus and why we've taken some time this fall to focus on the experiences of newcomer early childhood educators and organizations that support newcomer early childhood educators, families, and children. You can see that some folks joining from Halifax, we have from Creston, from St. John, we have Hamilton, East Preston, Halifax, Moncton, childcare, Ontario. So there's a range of folks attending. And so I am going to introduce our storytellers, which is really my privilege to have the opportunity to do that. So these are the stories that we've had. These are the titles of the storytellers today. We have Erin from Prince Edward Island. And her story title is Nurturing Our World, Celebrating Language and Connection. Followed by, we're going to follow her by Aura, who her title is Fighting Resilience in Immigration. We'll follow that by Moicha, who's representing a story of experience from Newfoundland, Labrador, and her story is called Roots and Wings, Together We Can Grow and Belong. And then finally, Jackie from Nova Scotia, and her story title is When Curriculum Embraces Your Culture. So I'm so excited to welcome. We'll switch right into that storytelling period of the session. We'll take down slides, and we look forward to having these conversations as we get started. A listening lens, this is something that we provide as an inspiration for folks to think about. You can jot down some of these things as you're listening. It might help to identify questions also as you listen to the stories. So please, as you listen to the stories, think about what are some of the connections across these stories? What trends do you see? What stands out across these trends? And what did you learn that might help to inform your work? And we hope that you might find those nuggets of information that you might be able to take into your current work. So without further ado, I am going to share the floor with Erin. So Erin, feel free to introduce yourself, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to invite me here today. Also, thank you to, I think she's joining here somewhere, but Dr. Gabriela Arias de Sanchez for making this connection. She is my thesis supervisor and also works closely with the project that I'm going to be talking about today. And thank you all for joining and listening. So my name is Erin Pilling, and I'm a student in the Master of Education program at the University of Prince Edward Island. And as part of my Master of Education, I'm completing a thesis exploring children's mental well-being through community. Growing up, I grew up in a small town in Nova Scotia, and having a connection to my community was always a really important part of my life. As we all know, our environment has a substantial impact on how we interact with and understand our world. And our environment can influence our feelings of safety and belonging, where relationships and connections with each other are truly vital. So as I progress through my career, my passion for children's mental well-being, specifically through community environments, really significantly grew in my current role as a project assistant at the Faculty of Education's Literacy and Numeracy Outreach Project. The Literacy and Numeracy Outreach Project, which we call LNOP for short, began after a needs assessment was completed across the province. Through funding from a generous donor, along with additional government funding, the LNOP works with communities to support literacy and numeracy, and it's all done through play. So our programs include an after-school program in a rural community for children in grades kindergarten to 3. We have an early years program that we collaborated on with the province, the PEI Public Library Service, and that's called Playing with Stories. And that takes place in Charlottetown and is for children ages 2 to 8 and also their families. And then we have summer camps, which we have called Camp Elemento, and they take place across Prince Edward Island, and they are for children in grades kindergarten to 3 as well. So these programs really began to boost literacy and numeracy across the province. However, we found that as these programs continued, they offered so much more. These programs offer a sense of community and connection and belonging, where stories are shared and so many friendships are made. So the story that I really want to highlight today is from Camp Elemento this past year. So to help set the scene, I'll give a description of what Camp Elemento is all about and what it looks like. So this year, Camp Elemento took place at 4 elementary schools across Prince Edward Island. Children attended camp for 2 days per week for the full 8 weeks of summer. There was 1 day a week where all of the educators, we all got together and shared stories, debriefed, planned for following weeks. And this is kind of where these stories came from. They were stories that have been shared on those days. So each camp is delivered by 2 camp counselors who are typically recently graduated Bachelor of Education students. And camps are delivered alongside 1 camp assistant who is typically an undergraduate student interested in pursuing a career in education. So Camp Elemento, like I said, is a play-based camp that focuses on supporting literacy and numeracy skills during the summer months. The camp space is inspired by Reggio Emilia. It encourages storytelling, exploration, discovery, and camp is filled with open-ended materials, art supplies, carefully curated provocations and learning invitations, and a wide selection of beautiful, beautiful books. And each camp location would receive a new bin of books every week. And that was really a highlight for not only the children, but I remember bringing in new books, and the teachers were always so excited with what was coming. So Prince Edward Island has an increasingly diverse population, and there's so many different cultures and languages, and we really wanted to make sure that camp was a space that was reflective of all of those cultures and languages spoken, where children were able to read stories in their own language, and other children were able to gain exposure and experience with other languages, many that they might not have even known about before. So our camp libraries included a variety of multilingual books. So the multilingual books were written in English as well as another language. Languages included Arabic, Hindi, Mandarin, Malayalam, Punjabi, Spanish, Vietnamese, and these books very quickly became a favorite for many children, where children would run to the bookshelves each day to read a story in their own language. And these books also created opportunities for children to learn new languages and getting to learn from their peers. They brought so many children together and really fostering that connection. So as I mentioned, camp encourages children to explore and tell their own stories. It is truly a child-led space. Each day, children are encouraged to try new things, take risks, collaborate with one another. And then towards the end of the summer, we need to celebrate all of the amazing things that happened. So we have a camp celebration that we refer to as their camp showcase. And now, like all other elements of camp, the showcase is completely child-led, where children decide what their showcase will be, and they work together to plan and create their event. So it's a really great opportunity for the children to work together on a project that's presented to their families during the last week while celebrating their hard work throughout the whole summer. The showcase at each location is always very unique and very reflective of the community that was developed throughout the 8 weeks. Some camps would choose an art gallery or a talent show or another type of collaborative project. So this past summer, one camp loved to create restaurants throughout camp. They would make menus, take orders, as I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. They would make the food, often out of Play-Doh or mud. So it was really no surprise that this camp decided to host a dinner theater for their families. The children wanted to highlight their many talents through a talent show while also creating menus and pretend food for their families. But when they were planning, they realized that everyone ate different types of food. So how were they going to make a menu that would be suitable for everyone? That was easy. It was the everything restaurant. So the restaurant had everything. So each child created a personalized menu for their families with food that they knew that their families would enjoy. So throughout the planning process, children worked independently and collaboratively. They supported one another in creating the restaurant. They were consulting their camp libraries, their camp counselors, and their peers for guidance. And many children would get so excited when they heard that their family's food was also another family's favorite food. Children were able to learn about new foods that they had not had the opportunity to try before. So I've heard many stories of children going home and asking their families saying they need to buy these new things. And they had so many opportunities to ask each other questions, and it was really a great learning opportunity for all involved. So then as the planning and preparation continued, many children noticed that there was something else that came up when they were planning their menus. They thought, did their menus have to be in English? Because one child realized that his grandmother would be coming to the showcase, and she spoke and read in Spanish. And he wanted her to be able to have a menu that she was going to be able to read and get excited about and order her food. So he made her menu in Spanish. So his camp counselors helped find the name of a particular food that she would always make for him. I think they consulted online resources. They were looking through books and everything. So then he was able to create his menu for his grandmother. Now, on the day of the showcase, all of the children eagerly set up the space and gathered around the room to welcome their families. They collectively yelled, "Welcome to the Everything restaurant," when the doors opened. And then the room filled with even more joy. The sense of community and belonging stretched from the camp community to the wider community of families together, enjoying their favorite pretend foods, sharing stories, laughter, and connection. So to end, I would like to leave you with a question. As educators, we are constantly learning and enhancing our practices. The children that we work with each day come with so much knowledge and so many experiences, and I always feel like some days they're teaching me more than I ever knew. So in your practices, how can we continue to ensure that spaces celebrate the knowledge and experiences that children are bringing with them? Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I invite you to react to Erin's story. Thank you so much, Erin. That was beautiful. And your story really, the title, Nurturing Our Words, Celebrating Language and Connection was just wonderful. And I think also I hear a lot of connections to our part 1 storyteller series already about the importance of connection through language and food too, which we know is so important across all cultures. Thank you, Erin, so much. We are going to move on to the next. I do see Aura there, which is wonderful. Aura, welcome. Your story title is called Finding Resilience in Immigration. You have the floor, and Aura has a new baby at home. So thank you so much for taking time today, and we all understand what it's like right now for you. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. I would like to introduce myself briefly. My name is Aura. I'm Mexican. My family and I arrived in pandemic November 2020. With that being said, we all remember how was the pandemic, right? It was very challenging and it was a lot. So it was our opportunity to come at that time. Many things happened before our arrival. In that time, we were only 4, my husband, myself, and my almost teenagers kids. There are now 14 and 11. But that time, when we came, it was mandatory to register as a client of the Charlotte County Multicultural Association. It was part of the process. So we did register. And when we arrived, at the beginning, it was only me and my husband because our kids weren't allowed to travel with us. We found out that at the airport. So we have to leave them in Mexico. Someone picked them up in Cancun and we traveled by ourselves. We did isolation. And during those days, we were given like a welcome to Canada introduction. It was online based. We learned briefly about how the things are working in Canada and also in the county. We came with a little advantage because my husband, the most about the language, he had most of the language. Me, I understood a lot of it, but I wasn't that fluent. So we came with that advantage. And also we had a glimpse of the idea of how it's living in the first world because we were living a few months in Salt Lake City, Utah. So we didn't come in blank. So many things that we were told during that presentation, we were kind of familiarized with, but there were things that were new to us. So we tried to do our best, and the executive director made a lot of emphasis about the importance of volunteering. And that word was stuck in my mind. We are all very familiarized with the word resilience, but the resilience doesn't come by itself. Many resources have to be available in order to people to have resilience in their lives. When I said that we came with advantages, it's also because we already had a community from our church. We came on a Saturday, so by Sunday, we didn't have enough food. We didn't have anything to have for dinner. So we reached out to our church community and they brought us some meals. And then on Monday is when the help was coming, like Multicultural Association brought food and stuff. So they were there to assist. Of course, because of those times that we didn't get together with many people. There were many places that were closed and many restrictions. We use the Charlotte County Multicultural Association resources often. If they did online sessions, we were there. If they did, I don't know, an afternoon of crafts, we were there. And also we didn't have a car, so I tried to find the activities the most close to our area, to our house, so I could take my kids by walking, right? And we came in the winters. So we have to walk not too many long distances. So we got very involved in that. And eventually we tried to get involved in the community. And the community was very open to receive us, very interested about us. And we took advantage of that because we said, if the community wants to welcome us, we can bring them something. So we did an event for them called Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos. And this was in collaboration, not collaboration, Multicultural Association were the ones that funded that event for the community. And it was a total hit, huge success. Community here in this county is very open to, and they are really eager to learn more about the newcomers that are arriving, because this county doesn't have too many communities. We are quite a few, but there's still a need of more people. And people here wants to know about other cultures so much. Eventually, there was a funding available at the Multicultural Association, and I was given the opportunity to work as an inclusion coordinator, project coordinator, I'm sorry. And part of my job was to create a list of all the inclusion opportunities in the county. Why was that? Because it was, there was a gap about with the newcomers that they didn't know how to join to the community, how to build those connections. So I created the list. I went and talked to people, and they provided me all the information. And this information has been handed out to the newcomers, and most of them have been taken, have been benefited. Now the connections, the networking has been growing. And with that being said, also, when you get to know more people in this community, it's very likely that if you're looking for a job, you get better recommendations. So they can say, oh, I know that person. Yeah, they are very hardworking people. So that also gives a benefit to everyone, right? Also, one of the things that I noticed is that many immigrant moms, they didn't have a village so they can help them with their kids. There is a place here called Family Resource Center, and I was told that this is all across Canada. I don't know if that's the same name in all the provinces, but here's how we call it. So Family Resource Center is also in that inclusion list. And when I know about someone that has kids, like in that age, in that age that Family Resource Center does the programs, I tell them, do you want to know other moms? Here is this place that I highly recommend. What am I going to say is, like, my dad has this phrase that says, I'm not inventing the black thread. I'm not saying things that some people doesn't know. But you know that when we are coming here to Canada, us immigrants, we really want to integrate with your community right away. There are many things that we are not taught at school. For example, I took English classes, but they never taught me about slangs. They never told me how people, real Canadians, talk. You are taught English like a very proper way, but when you come here, people speak different. So we do want to know how you Canadians think, how you Canadians talk, so we can join you, enjoy the things that you do, participate on the things that you do, having your traditions. So that's part of the Multicultural Association, to help you to get involved easily in the community, because the first weeks of a newcomer arrival, is a boom of information. You get overwhelmed of how much things you have to do in a very short time. Register the kids, getting your SIN number, doing this, doing that. It's a lot and you get overwhelmed. And our job was to make that process smooth. One time I was going to my kids' elementary school by that time. No, I'm sorry. It was just my daughter, the one that was in elementary school. This is while I was working at the CCMA. And the community, I don't remember the title of the lady, but she's like student community something. She talked to me and she said that she had a few questions about a program that she wanted to do. So we were discussing and it came in the conversation about Chase the Ace. And I was like, what's Chase the Ace? She's from Ireland. And she said, you know what, Ora? I don't know either. So we were trying to figure out what was Chase the Ace until we find out together. And we said, it is very funny because I have been here for like 3 years and I don't know what's Chase the Ace until now. And she laughed. She said, I have been here for like 10 years and didn't know either. So we were like, we can make like a booklet for the newcomer families so they know about these things. It might sound silly, but if you have the questions and you don't know who to ask, it will be good to know. Chase the Ace is just like a fundraiser for sports or whatever is needed. But those things that you think that everyone will find out eventually, they will know about that in the meantime. No, you're wrong. We might not know right away. In Spanish, from where I'm from the South, we have this expression, I will shred the meat for you, which means if I'm able to shred the information for you so you can easily digest it, I will do it. So if we get those resources in a shredded way, people to digest, the transition and the settlement will be easier. Immigration per se is so stressful. So my goal, I would like to, we can make it more easily. I came with an advantage, like I said at the beginning. My kids came with an advantage because they already knew the language a little bit. But what about the families that don't come with those advantages? I am from a third world, and things are way different there than here. You have no idea how different they are. Just an example, where I'm from, car seats are not mandatory. If you're bringing someone that has not been taught about that, they don't know that what they're doing is illegal about not having their kids in their car seat. And everyone would say, oh, but that's pretty obvious. How are you going to have a kid if not in a car seat? Well, it's not obvious. It is culture. It's something cultural. Going to the Family Resource Center, getting involved with the community, it really helps you to understand how the dynamic works. And when I became a new mom in this community, in this country, I said, I need to learn how these Canadians raise kids. So I can make a mix of how I raise my kids in Mexico and how am I going to raise my kids here in Canada. So they can have good things from both countries, because my heritage is my heritage and no one is going to take that from me. And that's the only way that they are going to learn about my culture, from the way that I'm raising them. But it is important that if parents that are coming with kids, helping them to make that process of immigration smoother. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Ora, so much. There's so much in what you shared. I think those unwritten cultural aspects of living in Atlantic Canada. I think the example of Chase the Ace was wonderful. It's one of those unique things about living here. And I love that it's not obvious. And I think that those aspects of really supporting newcomers with aspects that are not obvious and not written, those unwritten aspects are so essential. And thank you to you for managing your beautiful baby. And they probably need to go down for a nap now. I think that's what you were trying to do. So thank you so much from all of us for your story. Thank you, Ora. Okay, we are going to keep moving on to our storytellers, complete, and now we have two more. I am so pleased to introduce you all to Moicha, who is from Newfoundland, Labrador, and her story title is Roots and Wings, Together We Can Grow and Belong. Moicha, you have the floor.
First of all, thank you everybody for for inviting me. I'm really honored to be here, and so I'm originally from Slovenia, but right now in St. John. So on the ancestral homelands of Mikwak and Botok, and also recognize that the Inuit to Nunanswet and Inuit to Nantakwet and Inuit of Nintetsuans as the regional peoples of Labrador. I came here with a story. It's kind of a two parts because I'm immigrant. It's as well. So I came to Canada 2009 as an ECE. I got a job here in the center, so I kind of know the process of immigrating here. Yes, I totally kind of understand. Or coming in, like everybody has a different story. My story how to immigrate to Canada was totally different from somebody else, and in my new role I also know that there are so many differences and so many nuances of to come, and I do feel that I had an advantage of it just because I was studying in the States, which is a little bit different if you're coming from a country that your language is not your English is not your first language. So I understand that each story is unique, and how I come to Canada, it's going to be totally different from somebody else. And I cannot generalize my story to anybody else, but I kind of know a little bit of steps how to get in there, and processes how to get into the country and all that. But what I want to say in kind of a high, echoing Aura's story as well, that coming here, one of the reasons that I stayed here was the community that I experienced here. I came to Newfoundland. I said, I've never been to Canada before, to Newfoundland, never heard of it. Let's see, right? And the love, the respect, the openness of the people here is what I fell in love with. And here we are, so many years later. I had an amazing experience as an early childhood educator in the center, where we really had a lot of ECEs from different parts of Canada, but also around the world. And I can speak for myself, the community that grows, that we work together well, and we learn from each other. The amount of growth that I experienced, the amount of understanding, the amount of how other people work as an ECE, so where the cultural background, the information that I learned was immense of. And it helped me grow as a person, but also as an ECE, because I think that we all need to learn, but also it gave me a way of grounding myself here to have a new home, because I feel that I have a home back in Slovenia, but this is my home. But I was able with getting to know people here, that community outside ECE field, with a church, with getting friends outside there in here in St. John's. I was able to grow roots and start to grow. And for me, that was important. Now I transitioned from a role as an ECE to a role as a registrar, so at Association of Early Childhood Educators. So what I do now is overseeing the certification. So everybody in different provinces, we do have certification where you have to be certified, and this is my role. And my role is a little bit different than being on the floor. And I'll talk a little bit more about our organization, because we are in a little bit unique ways, because association, ASML for short, has two roles. One is more like a regulatory part, which I'm part of, doing the certification. The other part is supporting and helping ECEs, which includes also newcomers. And in the last 2 years, we have grown, which I think it was amazing. And what enabled us as an organization to do is uh, provide things to help ECEs and newcomer ECEs that are coming, because we have seen in the last couple of years huge intake of ECEs that are coming from other countries. And as my other previous, Erin and Aura were saying, though the ECs help families, and if we work together as a community, that's how we're gonna grow as a community of ECEs, as families, as a societies. We have done some wonderful things. We have so many stuff that we want to do that we wish we could have another gazillions people to work with us so we can help. But some of the stuff that we have been doing, we have started to have great ongoing, relationship with associations. We have here Association of New Canadians here in Newfoundland, to immigration government, immigration office, Department of Immigration. So we're working with them to see, what can we do on a policy level for the certification. I'll give you an example of people who have work permits, and part of our certification requirements is if you have a trainee level, you have to go to school. But if you're on a work permit that doesn't allow you to go to school, how can we still certify in order to, to work in the center? So we have find a ways that, with a work permit, you're able to work, get certified, and we're not putting up the barriers. We have done a lot of job fairs locally and internationally, and we are always presented there to provide information about certification. We have created numerous documentation websites and stuff like that to see what ECEs and an international, newcomers ECE would need in order to, I want to work in a childcare center in Newfoundland and Labrador. What do I need? And where to find those information? Because like Aura also said, it's important that you can find information where you can read it or put it in translation, but then having people, because we have to go and speak. Like I said, how many times we sit down with ECEs and go through, explaining the processes, because sometimes it can be very challenging and very colluding, and to figure out what do I need to do and the way I do it and how to do those things, to where to find things. We hired an EC navigator this year, so she's a go-to person, and she will be the ones that newcomer ECs or ECs in our province will go to and say, I don't know where to go. And she will be able to find information and change stuff. We have a PL coordinator that has done an amazing job this 2 years that create different professional learning opportunities for the ECEs, and also that also has in multicultural, anti-bias, inclusion learning in there, because we all need to learn, and we are hoping to provide more opportunities, have connections, learning, a practice of learning hubs, so that all the ECs can come together and can learn together, especially because our province is so huge, and one part of the island to the next is like an 8-hour drive. So we're kind of hoping for the future to make those hubs within the communities itself, and then connecting it on a provincial level. I'm also glad that we're able to do things because we're doing it multi-level. I also have a conversation with our provinces in regards to certification and our government to see what can we do and ways to support the ECs and international ECs. So we're hoping, here's the thing, I don't think that our job is done and will never be done. My sincere hope is to keep going and create better, versatile, opportunities and resources for the newcomers, ECs and ECs at all, communities of practice, and connect with different organizations, because I know that we as an organization itself and stand alone, we cannot help our own, but connect with other organizations that help newcomers, families, ECEs, so that we together can all take roots and we can all grow, and we cannot do that without working together. So that's from my end.
Thank you so much, Moisha. Your story, I think you mentioned at the beginning, everyone's story is unique, and I think that's a really important part of our perspective as we think about supporting newcomer educators, families, and children. I love that idea of the support navigation role that ASINAL now has, and how important that is to helping newcomers navigate the process. And someone said in the chat, the red tape sometimes that's around our protocols that we create. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much again for your story. So glad to have you be a part of this. ASINAL is a big partner in our Peace Hub work, and we're so glad to have Moisha share both her own story and that of ASINAL as well. Wonderful. So we have our final storyteller, Jackie Lee. And Jackie, your story title is When Curriculum Embraces Your Culture. You have the floor.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. And I'm very, very privileged and honored to be here sharing my personal and professional journey with you all. So a little bit about myself. I came here from South Korea in 2011 to study early childhood education as an international student. And I have a little bit of experience working with the children and family, about 10 years in Korea, and then about, 10 something years in Canada now. And my current role is teaching future early childhood educators through EAL and ECE pathway program through NSCC. That is my current role, which I love. And when I saw the job posting in 2024, I cried. Trust me. That was just something that was so related to my personal journey. And also, I could see the value that where it's coming from. So it was truly meaningful to apply and got a job and happily working and studying and learning with my learners. This is our second year. And a little bit about this program, because I know some of you probably don't know about this program. So this program launched in September 2024, and it is a 100% funded program. So it is totally free by the Department of Education. And it is only offered for newcomers who's been living here in Canada less than 5 years and who must hold their Canadian citizenship or permanent residency. So, and then also they have to meet the CLB English readiness assessment, which is 8. You usually have to enter any post secondary schools, but as long as you are CLB 6, you can enter this program, because there are 16 weeks English language readiness module that is required for these learners to complete before starting the ECE program. So there is a beautiful bridge that's supporting these learners so that they can enter this program, and then they do their way to get to CLB 8 to graduate. That's the another condition they have to meet. And also they are all required to work a minimum of 15 hours per week, working in the licensed childcare center or pre-primary program. This program is also connected with ISAN's Bridging the Gap program. And if anybody is already in that program, they have a priority admission. So that is about the program, which is amazing. And we are expecting our second cohort starting soon. So about our program and how this program embraces our learners' culture. This is something that I kind of wanted to highlight about this program. So I try to support and create opportunities as much as possible to represent and recognize our learners' previous experiences and unique childhood experiences. For example, they are asked to and provided chances to share their childhood memories and play experiences, and that are very unique and beautiful and diverse. And they are open to share with their own their cultures, theories, and theories, so that we learn about each other's past, and we learn about a little bit about their background and culture. And also, this program is allowing PLAR, which is previous learning assessment and recognition. So if there is any previous education that can be accepted, and also any experience is working in the field, and that can be credited as well through the PLAR assessment process. And another beautiful thing about this program is language support. Obviously, I also am an immigrant, but I know that how important it is to have like a simplified and clear, guidelines and rubrics for students. And we have a beautiful faculty who is working on language readiness only for that mission. So she's creating, and she and I work together so that I share my course content and course assignments and coursework so that she can create these assessments around those, I think, course content, so that students, they don't really have to study other, really unnecessary or unrelated, I guess, words or vocabularies or articles. Instead, they can actually focus more on what they're learning, what they should be studying. So that way they can, I guess, hit the two goals at the same time. So that's beautifully embedded in this program. And also we have a very flexible openness. It is 100% asynchronous. So we don't really have any designated classrooms or virtual classroom sessions. But so it opens another like freedom and another flexibility to my learners, because most of I think all of my learners, they are working in the field and full time, and they are mostly taking care of their families and children. And so it is really hard sometimes for them to tackle everything on top of everything. And there are assignments and things that they have to do. And that's why I kind of try to give like a just the only suggested due date. There is a strong hard due date, of course, because when term ends, that every course submission should be submitted. But until then, I only give the suggested due date. So some of the students, they're happy to have those guides, right? They can follow, and they try to follow, but things happen and life happens. And it gives, with this flexible suggested due dates, can give them like some, peaceful mind that, oh, I don't have to ask another extension, or I don't have to reach out my faculty right away just because of this, because I know that's only suggested due dates. Luckily, I have most students are completing within the timeline. I think maybe some of you might be like freaking out who are in my field, same field, like, oh, what if you're having like thousands of submissions at once? That never happened. This is my fourth term, so I think it's the same with children too. I think you just open like more chances and choices, right? More open, I think, windows, so that freedom that these learners can explore and kind of meet their own way to get, where they want to be. And that's our job, right? Also, the other way is I try to, even though it's 100% asynchronous, I know that they are new in this field, and sometimes they feel like silly to ask questions, and sometimes they feel unsafe to ask questions. Just like Aura mentioned, like sometimes they don't really know, and I really didn't know who to ask and who to, because just because I didn't know the culture, just because these learners, they're not comfortable about this culture, they don't want to be looked at as a not really smart person, right? So I think that's a kind of a fear that my students usually have. So that's why I created like a weekly voluntary tea and talk sessions, so they can come and ask about, coursework guidelines, or if they have anything happening in the classroom and then they really didn't know who to approach to, then they can always come and share. And as a whole group, it kind of brings us together, right? Because we all know that we've been walking the pretty much the same path, and we understand each other where we are. And that's, I think, kind of a power of our community, small community, but very safe. So that is something that's happening with my course. And I know there are a lot more, but I only have like this timeline. So this is probably the thing that I'm sharing with you today. And I'm really happy, and I cannot really share and say enough about how I think meaningful and valuable this time is learning with my students, and happy to be the person that maybe I needed like 13 years ago. So thank you for inviting me today. And I want you to, everybody who are here, I'm sure you are interested in helping. So I want you to go think about reflecting on what kind of things are we kind of opening for new staff or new family, new children. What are the like a natural way that you can include them in your program? And that is my question.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Yeah, thank you for ending with that question. How can we create more openings to include newcomer educators, families, and children? And I loved that you said that newcomer ECs are walking a similar path and creating that safe space for the educators to be with one another and create that peer support seems to be a really key part of your program. And I love the idea of the flexible dates as well. As an instructor in post-secondary, it's definitely, it comes with a bit of fear, but also I think in that trust that you have in students and the importance of flexibility in especially newcomer educators, their lives and all the roles that they have and all the transitions that they're experiencing for themselves and with their families. So thank you very much, Jackie. Thank you. Okay, so we've reached the point for the question period. I do invite you to refer back to, if you took notes on your listening lens that Janice had sent out prior to the session. Think about the connections across stories, trends you see, what stands out, and what you might use into your practice. We have the storytellers profiled, and I did see a hand earlier, so feel free to raise your hand back up. And we'd be happy to do that. So I do see one question via chat here. So I think the question was from Moicha, but for everyone, have there been any challenges in your work? What are some of the challenges that you might have in supporting ECEs in newcomer ECEs or newcomer families in your role? What are some of the obstacles that might get in the way or that might make it difficult in your role to really create this sense of belonging for newcomer educators, families, and children? So maybe Moicha, I'll maybe go to you first and then see if anyone else wants to chime into that.
Sure. Of challenges, I think that one of the major things that we have encountered is that up to, like I said, 2 years ago, we had 3 staff that basically were overseeing professional learning, helping the ECEs in general, including the newcomers, and doing the certification for the whole province. And that was extremely challenging because I felt that we couldn't do to actually help as much as we would like to help them. We now, since have more staff, which is great. Like I said, we have an PL coordinator, we have a navigator, we have extra staff that, because we do orientation courses for people who don't have an educational background in ECEs, then do the orientation courses. We have somebody who can provide support to that. So some of the challenges for us have been have enough staff to provide support. That being said, we are kind of, I feel that we are now really slowly getting out of that. There's still a lot of things that I feel we need to do, or I would like to do, so that we can have that better support. And again, it's like a multi-layered thing, like I said before, to now we are reaching out to other organizations so we can work together to help ECEs, families and stuff like that, so we can create together. We're also with other stakeholders, more like on provincial and Canadian level in regards to government, in regarding policies and regulations and stuff like that, to see that what can we do that we still have a quality, but it's also accessible, so that working those two together. It's not perfect. I don't think that ever will be perfect, but I think that if we are open and come to the table together and work together, I think we can create bridges, because I feel that if we don't work together, we're never going to get anywhere. It's not going to benefit nobody.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you much. And I love how naturally you went to a challenge, but sort of the way to overcome that, as that would have been my next question for you. So Erin or Jackie, maybe Erin will go to you next. Or is there a challenge that you experienced in your story, then maybe a description of how you overcame that?
I think, like you were already saying, like building those connections, building those relationships. But something that we found challenging, not we tried to overcome it this year, but so a challenge that we had in the past was with some language barriers. And I mean, it's difficult to ask a newcomer family to, for example, sign a permission slip for something if they speak a different language. So we had my project manager had contacted it's URSA. That's an acronym, but they provided some support where families could go and have somebody translate things for them. And then on the first day of camp this summer as well, if there was families that were needing that support, there was volunteers from URSA that came to help
Nice.
them on their first day to transition their child into camp.
Yeah, so interpretation services, an organization. Awesome. Thank you, Erin. Jackie, do you have any comments on this question?
For my role, I think current role, I think it's challenging that I cannot really, see them in person, and in like ECE field, we have so many things that we can do it together, and the field itself, we're like a human people, right? So that's one thing that I'm missing. But I try to create because most of students are from HRM in HRM, so that's something that I try to create, like workshops or in-person, things that they can participate if they want. And yeah, that's again, I guess we are ECE. We see the struggle and we try to, find ways to overcome. So I think, and students felt like the live, tea and talk kind of a session has been very helpful, and that's the very essential part, at least that we could have, and I could provide for them. I was happy to. And get connected, like another connection piece there. Like you really need to know who they are, and they really need to know who I am to get connected and to share. That's the
Great,
only thing right now.
Thanks, Jackie. Oh, Aura, I'm not sure if you're there and if you're able to comment on this. It could be from your perspective or also from the Multicultural Association that you worked with.
Sure.
Yeah.
Something that is done from the Multicultural Association is that they do the targeted match. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly. Targeted match. So they is volunteering. Someone from the community volunteers, and they said when you have a newcomer that we have things in common. For example, family with kids like same ages, you can connect them with them so they can introduce them to the community. Introduce them to their friends, to things to do, activities and stuff. And that same initiative was replicated by an association here in our town called Future St. Stephen. I think it no longer exists. I'm not quite sure, but they did kind of like the same. They provided a welcome package with had information about doctors or landlords or stores, things to do in town. It came with a little cute bag. So you were given that bag with a newcomer family and someone from the community, like Canadian, well established for many years. So if they had questions or whatever, they were there to assist. Mostly like becoming friends, like making them their first friend here in Canada, kind of like that idea. And I found that pretty neat.
Thanks, Aura. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
If there's anyone else with questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We do have one of our team that has been brainstorming questions, and I'll maybe offer one of those in the absence of anyone else that has a question. And I'll make it a bit more general. I'm curious in your stories in working with families from different cultures and supporting newcomer educators, families, and children, if there's been any surprises to you in your own journey. So things you didn't consider Erin, for you, a learning moment that you had with a child, or learning moments that you've had, Jackie, in working with ECEs and Moicha as well. And also for you, Aura, maybe surprises in your own journey, or also in your role within the multicultural organization that you work with. So I'll maybe go in a bit of a different order. Aura, if you're still available, we'll just kind of go backwards here. Aura, do you want to share any surprises in your journey?
Well, there was a time that I was like cleaning the list of clients that were active or inactive, and it kind of surprised me that several years ago there was a big group of people from Philippines that came to a little island we have, Deer Island, here in Charlotte County. And some of them are still living there, but others don't because they felt very secluded in that area. So I wonder if all these initiatives that are being done now, will they help to retain more people? Because even when I came here, most of the people that arrived during that time when my family and I arrived, they moved because they didn't feel there was too much to do here. And when I started that position of the inclusion project coordinator, I said there are a lot of things to do here. We just need to spread the word more efficiency. And what I mean, there are many things that are needed, but I need spreading the word will be the easiest one. And for example, like I was saying about the targeted match, maybe there's people that is a lot into sports, but they cannot afford them. So put them with families, and perhaps a group of the community can do that sport with a small fee, and we all can practice those sports, right? Music, crafts, arts. There are many things to do that if we really work together as a community, we can make it cheap. Because I know fees to join those kind of things are expensive. Everyone is struggling with money.
Yeah.
So people here is willing to collaborate. We just need to push a little bit more so those things can happen.
Oh, thank you, Aura. Thank you. Jackie, maybe I'll go to you next.
For this role, I think I'm always surprised at how I think resilient and how strong they are, and how they try to understand and try really hard to be accepted. Sometimes it's really like I guess in a good sense, it's a great that it's they're trying and they're positively trying, but then in other sense, it's heartbreaking to feel like they feel like they shouldn't really speak their own languages sometimes at work, and sometimes they need to change their way of expressing, or so I think they're learning, right? And I'm happy to have this space for them to share those, but also at the same time, hopefully we have more people understanding with respect and try to learn it from each other, and that's something I'm hoping.
Thanks, Jackie. Erin, anything that surprised you in your work?
Yeah, so like Aura was saying when she was presenting about the example with the car seat and how maybe it's not obvious and there's so many things that aren't obvious. And I think that, I mean, I grew up in a very small town in Nova Scotia, and where I went to school with the same people from kindergarten straight to grade 12. When I came to PEI and I started working in all of these communities, I have been learning so much. And I think it's just been kind of I remember having a moment of realization about there is so many things that I don't know. And taking that step to then learn those things, to talk to families, to talk to children. At our early years program at the library, every year we celebrate Diwali, and that is a celebration that I hadn't been familiar with before. So I have been on an amazing learning journey, and I'm learning about so many new languages, which has been amazing. And even something such as when we're teaching children to sound out their words or to spell words, and taking that phonics approach and considering that the pronunciations are not necessarily the same. They're not necessarily the same from one side of Canada to the next, let alone from other countries, cultures, languages. So taking all of those things into consideration, and it's just been a learning journey, and I have so much more to learn. So I really appreciate opportunities like this to hear other people's stories.
Thanks, Erin. Moicha, any surprises for you or things you didn't consider?
I'm just gonna echo every Erin's, Jackie's, and Aura's stories, because I can see myself in any of those responses that they have put out, and especially like in this role that I have right now, most of the times I see people only through the emails or only through the application. So for me, it's more like I remind myself always that there are people behind the paper, behind the email, because I don't have faces, and to put those names to it. And when we have our regional conference, and I love going there, and I love putting the name with a person. I know it's a person there, but it's nice to have conversations with them, to see who they are and where they come from. This is my big takeaway. I am in a journey of learning and making sure that they're respected. They will always be respected and valued in whatever we do in our organization, whatever I do.
Amazing. Well, thank you. I will invite you, maybe one final comment, things you'd like to see going forward, or things you'd like to really encourage the audience to be thinking about in our work to support newcomer educators, family, and children. Jackie, is there anything else you'd like to add as sort of a closing statement?
I always try to say come with respect. That's all you need. No love needed from the first, just respect, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we can all start. Always be curious and respectful to each other.
Thank you, Jackie, so much. Moicha, do you have a kind of a closing for us, like things you'd like to see?
Yeah, what Jackie said: respect, curious, learn, and grow communities. Because without that, we will never be able to do amazing things. I think we're doing amazing things right now, but without that, we won't be able to do that.
To continue. Yes. Thanks,
Yes.
Moicha. Yeah. Erin.
Yeah, I think like both of you have already said, I definitely echo that. And I think when working with children, just taking those opportunities to really celebrate diversity. And like in my story with the menu that the little boy made in Spanish, the teacher could have easily just said, you have to write it in English. But she took that opportunity to be able to encourage him to write it in Spanish, and just taking those like little moments, and because I know that they mean a lot to the children and to the families.
Thank you, Erin. And Aura.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. And like Family Resource Center recruiter says, walking away feeling that things are happening for the better. Yes, I think that all the efforts that are being done, you won't see the results like next year, but in the coming years, things are going to get better for the newcomers and families. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aura. And thanks to all of the storytellers for your time, your stories of practice, of personal lived experience. We're so grateful for you spending the morning with us to share your experiences. We've had some really great takeaways shared from the audience. I'm just going to read out a couple. You're welcome to scroll that as well. Sense of community, communication as well, innovative, importance, thinking about individual needs, and also thinking about the unknowns. And that's certainly something I think I'm taking away, thinking about creating safety and community for newcomer educators, families, and children, making connections through culture and language, and making what we might think obvious explicitly obvious. I think really supporting that navigation is a really important role that we all can play in supporting newcomer educators, families, and children. So thank you all so much. We are going to wrap up. So thank you again for your time today. And a final thank you to our storytellers for the beautiful stories that were highlighted today. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a lovely day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.